My name is Diego. I'm a transformational life and consciousness coach, and thank you for being here with me today on another segment. Today I will touch on the ego. What is the ego, and how we can use that understanding to transform your life, your essence, who you are. I'm going to start with the basic definition. The ego is our lower self. We have a higher self and we have a smaller self. The smaller self is the ego, and the ego comes from the Latin word of I, the pronoun I, and it's not talking about Freud or evolutional psychology. Is really on that spiritual existential concept. Is not just, okay, I'm great, I am magnificent, or I am this, I am that. Some people latch onto the ego to create a pattern of pain, suffering, of victimhood. The ego is our lower self, it's not our higher self. I know you've heard this said many times again and again, and it's cliche. Focus on the now, because the future doesn't exist, the past doesn't exist, and just be in the present moment. I think that's a beautiful concept. However, what happens if you are in your head so much that you can't even be present? You cannot be fully present. That's where the ego is. The ego projects into the future, it goes back into the past, but it also projects your insecurities into the present moment. It's basically the script that you have in your head, those thoughts that are arising from your consciousness, and they talk to you so loud. They talk to you 24/7 while you sleep, while you're awake. That's just your ego. What if you were to go just step back and identify with consciousness instead of the thoughts that are arising from your consciousness? Those thoughts, again, will project you into the future, will take you to the past, or will sabotage your present moment. I'm going to give you an analogy. I love to use analogies. Your ego it's like a puppy. Just picture yourself buying this new puppy, a very cute, energetic golden retriever puppy. That's the idea I get when I think of a puppy. You're happy and you actually decide to go on a date Friday night, and your puppy in your living room all alone. She's just hanging out, having the time of its life in your living room. So that's the analogy that I use. The ego is like a small puppy. He wants attention, he wants to play, he wants identity. He just wants to be very conspicuous. It wants to be the center of attention, and that's what the ego is. The ego wants to feed on itself. It wants attention. It just wants to hold on to things from the past. It wants to be afraid of the future, and it's also sabotaging your present moment. So that's the analogy. Is like a little puppy, a small puppy. The ego in its core, it's narcissistic in nature, and by narcissistic, it just means that it's very focused on me. That puppy is not concerned about your sofa. The puppy doesn't care about your pillows that you just purchased. It's very fixated on me. That's the narcissistic core of the ego. And some people have this magnified sense of self, can be arrogant. When you think of narcissists, that's what people think. Is just this person who has a magnified view of who they are, who mistreats other people. But narcissistic is not just that. Again, we're going back to that me focus. And when you're a victim, when you're holding on to trauma, you are also a narcissist. You're blaming somebody else and then just saying, hey, that person is narcissistic, that person did this to me. But what if the pain that you're holding within yourself is just creating this loop, this pathway, this behavioral habit that you have, and it just creates this loophole that will keep you stuck where you are in life. The ego has payoffs, the attention that you receive, the emotional needs that you get by identifying with the ego are payoffs. Those payoffs just nurture or help the ego grow. And the example is someone who is always a victim and they're always complaining. That's the cycle. They complain, they get attention, and they seek that attention. That's the payoff. They're getting emotional comfort out of their story. Obviously, it may mean that they're having some sort of pain, and if you are complaining or if you're venting, it's not necessarily wrong. What's wrong is that you're not questioning, you're not trying to understand your own inner motivations, and those motivations are payoffs. You have a payoff and question that. Don't question your pain. We all have pain, but question the motivation. Are you just unconsciously choosing to hold on to pain to keep you in this cycle? It's a negative reinforcement. Like, you complain, you victimize, you get the attention, the needs, you have people drawn to you, and you're manipulating people. You're not willingly doing this. It's an unconscious mechanism. So that's the loop of the ego and how it's narcissistic in nature. Again, we're going back to that same puppy. It revolves around me. There's a playful aspect of it, an innocent aspect of it. It's not aware that, okay, I'm going to destroy the living room because I want to. It's just looking for an outlet for attention, maybe have some fun. The ego's like that, and sometimes we may take it very seriously, but if you just, again, disassociate from that identity, from that background, or from those thoughts, then life can change for you. What are the ways that we can transcend or get beyond that ego? The ego is our smaller self. There are some distinctions about capital I and small I. I'm not going to touch on that. I want you to do your own research on that. Why some people have used the capital I and the lowercase I. And I'll give you a hint, is to make a distinction between the higher and our lower self. The first step to get beyond your ego is understanding. Again, if you just understand that it's just a playful little puppy, it's going to create a lot of havoc. But one day that puppy will grow and hopefully it will be more mature. But just understand that it's a puppy and you have to take responsibility for that understanding that it's just a puppy who's playing and you are the one responsible for your puppy in the living room. You have to acknowledge your responsibility in how you create that ego aspect of yourself. We all have egos and we may not be able to fully transcend them in this lifetime, but it's understanding it's what helps us, how it functions, what the ego is. That's how you can start getting beyond. It's like a progression. You have understanding and then you go into the emotions of it itself. If you are feeling sad, upset, don't neglect those emotions. Allow to fully express those emotions. If there's anger, if somebody hurt you in your life, feel those emotions. Emotions are there because we're human beings. We have a conscience, we have a heart, we have an aspect of ourselves that questions, and you will have emotions to bridge and lift so that you get in tune with that part of you that transcends the body. Your emotions are basically your soul. That's why we all have emotions, because they come from the anima, as they called it back the Greeks. We have a soul. That soul will reflect emotions, and those emotions are energy, life. Feel those emotions, don't neglect them. Allow yourself to feel those emotions. We have gone from an understanding, acknowledging the emotions, and we go into the I am. I started this conversation with how the ego comes from the line of I. And so once you step beyond the emotions themselves and you're just looking at life in a more objective, more contemplative or reflective space, you really want to ask and question yourself. Like I said, the ego focuses on thoughts. It's not aware of the consciousness. When you look on the background and you ask yourself, who am I? You're no longer identified. It's who I am in its core essence. And it all comes from, again, divine essence. I have a reference, and this reference is a biblical reference. It comes from Exodus, where Moses was pretty much questioning his identity in the eyes of God, or the things he was about to accomplish. And he was not sure where his identity was rooted. He asked God, and the answer that he received from God was, I am who I am. And I am who I am, it just alludes to our infinite essence. I believe that God just said, I'm infinite. He didn't even have to say God. He didn't have to say I'm the omnipotent, all-knowing. He just said, I am. That reflects the infinite nature of God. That's our infinite nature as well. I am. We're infinite beings. We have that I am within us. And if we identify with the I am in pain, or I am hurt, or I am small, or I am crying, we are going to do that beyond that surface. There's much more when you disassociate your identity from your identifications with your own pain, and you step back and you realize that it's just a puppy having fun. You're in a space where you can create, you can be happy, where you have no suffering, you feel light, you can create great things, you can start your day without any baggage. When the present moment, you know how to deal with what's sabotaging that perfect present moment. And that's what I am is. When you transcend the ego, there's a higher self that will get things done without any effort, where all the trauma is just basically seen as an image or a picture. Where you see a movie, just different scenes going on, and you're not identifying with the scene, you're just watching the movie and you're just flowing with life. That's what the ego is. I've given you some ways that you can transcend, and I've given you some references, very powerful references that will have you questioning who you truly are. I want to give you some homework is to just ask yourself, who am I? Throughout your week, throughout your day, who am I in light of your life, what you think you are? And just do that. You can even do simple meditations. Set aside 10-15 minutes a day. Who am I? Who am I? And that's it. It doesn't take hard work. You're going to face challenges because your mind will fixate on what you're not. When you step back and you connect with who you truly are, you're going to see life in a different light. I want to thank you for watching this video. I do invite you to take some action. I will be running some workshops, and we are going to have some live programs for you. Take care. It was a pleasure sharing this with you.